Welcome to the show. My guest tonight, Hrudey.
Jeff, this is beautiful. Thanks for the invite. This set is amazing. Like I went on YouTube last night and watched some of your shows. Very impressive. And the list of questions that you sent me a couple days ago, I normally don't accept the questions. I just want to go in cold and have no idea what I'm going to be asked. But man alive, very in-depth. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you. And thanks for being on the first episode of mine that my dad will watch.
I'm sure you'll get a lot of old people watching this one. I relate.
I'm a big fan. You retired when I was young, but as a broadcaster, I was a goalie growing up.
Okay, cool.
So I always liked your
Do you still
perspective. Play? I play not goal.
Okay.
In beer league, I'm not a goalie.
Right, exactly. That makes sense. That's what most of us do.
Yeah.
When we're finally done playing goal, then we play forward.
Yeah.
Have fun at the game.
But I always liked your perspective, the goalie perspective. So
well, it's different, right? And not a lot of people have that perspective about how difficult it is mentally, and that's more what I try and talk about. Because the position itself, you can teach. I may be a little bit wrong here, but pretty much anybody can teach it now to a young player, a young goalie, because they all do it very similar. But what separates the good ones and the ones that get to the NHL would probably be how good they are mentally and how they can move beyond a bad game or a bad goal. Mm-hmm. And so I talk a lot about that.
Yeah, sometimes I remember playing the win was on the team and then the loss felt like it was on the goal.
100%. And that's one of the more difficult things, I think, actually, for parents watching their young goalie, whether it's a boy or a girl, and how that kind of alienates the family from the rest of the families, because exactly what you said, oftentimes far too much blame is on the goalie when they lose a game or if they give up a bad goal. And I think that's really hard for the family to accept.
Sorry about that.
No, we all love dogs.
I'll cut this spot. It's easy to cut.
Right.
That's the beauty of not being live. How often are you live?
How often are my shows live?
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them?
I've rarely ever done anything recorded. This would be one of the rare ones. It is interesting you bring that up. So if we're going to do a post-game hit or something like that, or if we're in the studio in Toronto, whether it's regular season or during the playoffs, post-game, if we have to do something that we record it, you can't believe how awful some of us can be. We boot it around so often. And I think it's because when you're live, you just feel like, man, I've got to nail this. I've got to concentrate. I've got to do this properly. Whereas if it's recorded, in the back of your mind, you always think, if I kind of mess this up, I can do it again. But worse, let's just say I'm on a panel and Ron's there, Kevin, Jennifer, or Elliot, and myself, and I'm just going to make this up. So Ron nails his, Kevin nails his, I nail mine, Elliot or somebody messes theirs up. Now I know I'm in trouble because I most likely kind of liked what I said and try and repeat that. And it's impossible because it's ad lib, right? So
acting.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, and then I'll probably mess it up my time when we do it again. And I'm always thinking, well, what did I say last time? And I liked what I did. So yeah, live is the best. There's nothing like it. And it's kind of like playing a game. It's kind of like playing hockey because it's all live. You can't take anything back. And the good and the bad. Some nights you have a really good show. Some nights you don't. And you have to accept that. I'm going to go on here, but for my mental health, I was seeing somebody for weeks and weeks and months. And one of the things I needed to get over is that I could be bad on air and learn to accept it and live with it. So Rick Ball and I, this is a couple of years ago, Rick Ball and I had to do a post-game hit, and it's recorded. And so Rick's nailing it like he always does, and I'm awful that night. I just wasn't sharp during the game, and I was terrible in the post-game hit. And I think the producer said something in my ear after, do you want to do that again? And I bravely said, no, I need that to go out. I need people to see that, and I have to accept it that I'm just not sharp tonight and be okay with it, because sometimes you're always looking for perfection, and that's impossible, right? And it's a brutal way to live, and it's a brutal thing to chase.
Yeah. We skipped ahead. Can you tell everyone who you are, the whole kind of scope of your career for people who don't know you? I'm sure a lot of people know you.
Well, I'm Kelly Hrudey. I live here in Calgary. I grew up in Edmonton, and somehow I ended up playing the National Hockey League for 15 years. And then after I retired from the game, I got into broadcasting full-time in 1998. It's 2025, and I'm still a part of Hockey Night in Canada and Sportscenter. It's been a crazy ride.
When fans approach you about your playing career, what do they bring up the most? Is it the Easter Epic, 93 Cup run, something else?
Most fans would sort of bring up the Easter Epic because that's kind of what I'm known for. I held a record for, I think, 33 years, most saves in an NHL playoff game. And to be honest, that really put me on the map. Like I was the year before, that was 1987. The year before, I did play for Team Canada in the World Championships in Moscow. So that kind of got me, I guess, kind of on the map, more recognizable as an NHL goalie. That was after my third year. So playing for Team Canada is pretty cool, pretty amazing opportunity. But that Easter Epic the next year was when it really started to change for me. And because of that game, I was invited to play for Team Canada in the Canada Cup. Made that team along with Grant Fuhr and Ron Hextall. We were the three goalies on that team. And then after that, and because of that, I met Wayne Gretzky and we became friends. And then Wayne traded for me in 89 to leave New York and go to LA.
When Korpisalo was going to beat your record, were you watching that game?
I was. We were broadcasting that night. We weren't broadcasting his game, but we were broadcasting another game. And I had my TVs on. I have two TVs in my office, but we had DeGero, this different recording system for our show in Toronto because we couldn't travel back then. But I had the game on, and it was funny. It was in the first overtime, and I'm watching him, and I knew he is dialed in. And after that first overtime period, I went upstairs, and I've never done this in my life. This is no exaggeration. I went up, and I said to my wife, Donna, and I said, I think the record's going to be broken tonight. It just looks to me, unless there's a fluky goal, he's not giving up something anytime soon. And so I was really proud of him. But then the pandemic continued on because I always wanted to go say hi and introduce myself. And so a couple of years ago, he was in town with Ottawa at the time, and I texted their PR guy and asked if I could meet him, introduce myself and say hi and congratulations and all that. Well, unfortunately for him, he lost that game in Calgary, so he wasn't in a very good mood after the game. And nor was he all that willing to talk about that game that he broke my record because he lost. He goes, Kelly, he said something like, Kelly, at least your memory of that long game is a positive one. Mine's not. I lost. So we had a nice little chat about that. But that was a great night for him. As Wayne Gretzky has always said, records are meant to be broken. And so it was real fun to watch that game.
Goaltending's so different now compared to 80s and 90s. What do you wish was still part of it, and what are you happy is gone?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy for the guys that are excited that it doesn't hurt as much because they're so well protected, right? Like the equipment that we wore was the best at the time, but clearly it wasn't up to what they can wear now. As an example, and one of the reasons why the position changed so much, and Patrick Waugh and the Allaire brothers and so on, and other goalies, not just Patrick, but others, but they were able to go down in the butterfly position so often, and was because you didn't fear getting hit up high, right? So you were so well protected. Whereas, when I started, especially in junior and in the 80s, our equipment was the position was still dangerous. I remember, and this is, again, a true story. So think about this and how absurd this is. So when I was playing in Los Angeles, and I was playing a ton of games, but we didn't get many days off. So we're in practice, and my toes are so bruised and battered during the season because taking so many direct shots, whether your stick is in front of your toes or just the toes taking the shot. And times in practice, if my toes were so messed up, guys would shoot a puck along the ice, and instead of making a save, I'd lift my foot up and let it go in. And so you'd never see that in today's game. You'd never see that in today's practices because the guys are so protected. Now, the one downside about this and how they play, I just wish, and I'm on record saying this, so this is no big secret. I just wish the goalies were allowed more of a chance to just read a play and not just do goalie school 101, what they're taught now. For instance, high short side, stay on your feet a little bit longer. I'm not suggesting be a stand-up goalie. That's crazy, but stay up a little bit longer and take away that high short side, because it's such an epidemic now that so many goals go in high short side, and a lot of them could be saved. That could be a save, in my opinion.
So you probably get asked about Gretzky a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you the players that people don't ask you about as much, people that you're really wowed by other than Gretzky. Obviously, that's...
Boy, I've been impacted by so many great players in my career, right? Like when I was drafted in 1980. So that was the first year that the New York Islanders won their Stanley Cup, 4 consecutive, and they went to the finals a 5th time. They lost to the Oilers. But when I first went to my first training camp in 80, I mean, I'm walking into a dressing room with Mike Bossy, Brian Chirache, Billy Smith, Dennis Potvin, Clark Gillies, Bob Bourne, Bob Nystrom, all these incredible players, and they all had these different personalities. Like Mike Bossy was this ultra, at least to me it appeared, ultra confident guy that knew his importance on the team. Brian Chirache, although he is incredibly competitive on the ice, he was kind of more laid back, kind of chill. You wouldn't know it if you ever watched him play. And Dennis Potvin had this presence. He was a general. I mean, he ripped my first year. We were in Los Angeles, and I played the night before. It was a Saturday night. We won in LA, and we had a couple extra days. And so Dennis called a meeting in one of the boardrooms in the hotel at, I'm going to say 3:00 in the afternoon. And this meeting was simply to have a few beers and talk about where we're going to go Sunday night for dinner and live it up a little bit. So I'm assuming it's a 3:00 meeting just to have a couple beers where we're going to go that night. I didn't recognize that I had to be like 3:00 sharp. So I showed up maybe 3:01, 3:02, and all the guys are in this room. The room goes quiet, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm in trouble. Something bad is going to happen, because typically you walk in with all your friends, your teammates, and you just join the party, right? And Dennis stands up and goes, "How dare you?" Something like, "How dare you? So your time is more important than our time?" I said 3:00. I didn't say 3:01 or 3:02. I said 3:00. And I can tell you, Jeff, from that moment on, I was never late. As you most likely know, I was sitting out in the front of your house for 10 minutes before I came in, because I don't show up late. And so those are the characters, the people that had a great influence on me. Not a lot of people asked me about those guys. And then I had a chance to play with a guy like Tony Granato, we still stay in great contact. Thomas Sandstrom was an impactful player in my life. Rob Blake, Luke Robitaille, Marty McSorley, just so many guys throughout the years that they carried themselves differently than Wayne. I mean, Wayne's a special person with different demands on his time, but there's so many different guys that you meet and you go, I like that guy. I like the way he carries himself.
Has that happened in broadcasting, where you meet someone and you're kind of wowed by their natural ability at doing it?
Almost everybody I've met, almost everybody I've worked with in their own way, because we're all different. But when I first started to work with Ron McLean, I mean, he's the standard, right? So everybody's trying to get to Ron's level. None of us ever will. But his ability to take a show and in any direction, and I don't know most people recognize this, but we have earpieces in, and so we are getting constant feedback about something. Like, it's usually a time count. On occasion, I will, with my producer, I'll say something like, if I'm talking and I fail to mention this, remind me in my ear. But Ron, I worked with Scott Russell many, many years ago, and he's just a true professional. Scott Oak, Kyle Bukowskis. I mean, Kyle, like, so all these other people and everybody I've ever worked on a desk just incredible broadcasters. But Kyle Bukauskas might be the one most recently that really blew me away because he's so young, so good, so easy to like on the air. Like he had this producer for so long, Shirley Najak, whom has great influence on the Canadian landscape in production. And he was a director as well. And he worked really closely with Kyle and really helped him get to where he is today. But so many of them, I'm going to miss out so many different names, but I look at all these different people and I admire their skills because for most of us, we've never gone to school to be broadcasters. We've just learned along the way. And here's a bit of a side story. So when I retired from San Jose in 1998, Dean Lombardi, the general manager, he and I had a really good relationship. And as a gift for my retirement, he wanted to send me to broadcasting school in Los Angeles. And I already had a job lined up with Hockey Night in Canada with John Shannon. He was the executive producer at the time. And I mentioned this to John. And John said something like, well, that'd be a great opportunity, but I hope you turn it down because we'd like to teach you our way. Because we can hire any professional. But if we have you and we can sort of help you be more Canadiana, then that's what we'd like to do.
That was going to be my next question, actually. How this came about, the transition, and how was it? The differences from performing in front of a crowd in the sport and then broadcasting. Okay,
Jeff. So this goes back to when I first started in New York in the early 80s. So most people wouldn't know this, but I am more of an introvert, and I'm really quite shy. And I was extremely shy growing up throughout junior and when I first started in New York. But I'm a huge hockey fan, and so on nights off, I'd watch tons of hockey. But I wouldn't just watch the game, I'd watch the intermissions. And back then, the intermissions consisted of very, very few panels, if any. There'd be a host, and most often, the intermissions included a player interview that wasn't 30 seconds like we do now. These would be like 5 to 7 minute interviews. And I was fascinated by those. But I didn't think that a lot of players put in a lot of time and effort and a lot of thought into the interview. So I thought, you know what? Every time I'm going to be asked to interview, I'm going to, without throwing anybody under the bus, but I'm going to give what I think are more thoughtful answers. And so because I knew my career was coming to an end at some point. I had no idea whether it's going to be 2 years or 15. And I thought maybe if I do something that makes me stand out a little bit, maybe I can get a chance to be a broadcaster. That's how I was really thinking long, long ago. And so I had this, when I was now playing for LA, I was now getting to be better at it. I was sort of polishing my skills in being interviewed. So there still is this really popular TV station channel in LA called KTLA. And they had this super popular sports guy, Stu Nahan. He's a legend in the LA area, but he's originally from Montreal. And Stu and I had this really great off-air relationship. So we're in Minnesota for a game. I'm not playing that night. And he asked me to be the first period intermission guest. Well, we just nailed it. And Ron McLean and John Shannon and others in Toronto were watching it. And I remember John sharing with me years later going, I really like that. And if possible, somewhere down the road, we're going to see if Kelly would like to audition with us. So it was 1995 now, and we missed the playoffs by 1 point. We're in Chicago, our last game of the season. So we fly home, and my wife says, a guy by the name of John Shannon called, and he'd like you to call him back. Well, I knew John. I had known him for about 5 or 6 years at that point. So I call him, and he goes, hey, Kelly, so we're trying something new here at Hockey Night in Canada. We're going to have a new show based out of the atrium in the CBC and Front Street. And it's going to be Ron and Don, of course, one night. And then we'd like Ron and you to host every other night. And I'm thinking, man, that's really cool. And he goes, but I have to tell you something. You're not our first choice. You're our second choice. And I go, okay, that's cool. I go, who's your first choice? He goes, Wayne Gretzky. Well, Wayne turned it down, luckily for me. And so I did it 4 years in a row when I was a player. And I really loved it. I mean, who wouldn't love to be on Hockey Night in Canada, right? I mean, my first show, I remember finding out that we had 4 million viewers, and that takes a lot of getting used to, having that number going around in your head. But the difference between a broadcaster and playing, the playing is so much more difficult physically and mentally, and you've got, whether it's 16,000 plus fans in there, and you've got to get over yourself really quickly, whether it's a bad goal you've given up or a key save. You know, a key save gets you emotionally really charged up sometimes, and sometimes too much. And it's like in golf. You see a golfer get a birdie and he's really jacked, and all of a sudden he duck hooks his next drive because he's out of sorts, right? So, and broadcasting is the same sort of way. Like I take it as exactly like I would a game. I've got to get up. I know I'm in trouble for a broadcast if I'm not nervous. I need to be nervous, because I was always nervous for every single hockey game. And that was a good feeling. Your stomach's a little bit upset. You've got to get through the butterflies. And for me as a goalie, it was usually my butterflies would sort of go away after 3-4 minutes, which was a good thing. And as a broadcaster, I start to settle in after a certain amount of time. Like when I'm doing a Flames game as the color analyst, first sentence out of my mouth, I hope that I do okay. It sets me up for the rest of the night. But if I boot that first sentence around, it feels like it takes me a little while to get that traction and not feel about, oh boy, I hope people don't think I'm terrible, or whatever those feelings you get in your head or thoughts get in your head. So, but the two positions are very similar.
How was it for you at the beginning? Were you good at it right off the start, or did you have any like awkward moments that you?
We all have awkward moments. I mean, I still have awkward moments, and that's just the way it is. But I think I was okay. I was definitely very nervous. I remember when I first started that 95, and for those 4 years that I did it part-time, I would pace behind the set when I wasn't on camera. Just pace and pace and pace. I had one cameraman there. I've never seen anybody more nervous, but that's how I coped with it, right? I had all that energy stored up. I think that it's just such, when you do things live, you have to have those feelings. You have to have that energy.
Is there anything that working on Hockey Night in Canada or the Olympics, anything that would surprise viewers at home that they don't normally think about? That
Hockey Night or the Olympics, I've worked 3. I've worked World Cups, a bunch of other things. I've been to the Stanley Cup finals, I think, since 2002. So it's a lot of finals to do. That I think what might surprise everybody is that it's unscripted. So other than maybe a formula or we have a plan about an order we're going to go through just to make sure that we're not stepping all over each other. But what we say, our thoughts are just unscripted. So I'll have a few notes. Everybody has notes. We do it in all our own ways. But I usually have like 3 key points, and that's all I'll usually put in my page. But how I say it is just how it rolls off my tongue. I have no really preconceived idea going into each segment about how I want to say it, or maybe the order I want to say what I'm thinking. We blurt it out, and I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that seem like they could be scripted.
Right.
Like funny moments and things.
For sure,
that.
Right? And it's often, we'll have about a half hour, 45 minute meeting before a Saturday night broadcast during the regular season. We still have those meetings during the playoffs, and obviously they're every night. But we will go down a road, a topic, and one of us will usually say, or the producer in our reel will say, stop it. I want this live. This is too good a conversation, and I don't want to hear it now, and I don't want to ruin it. Let's just end it right now. So yeah, like a teleprompter, it looks so hard to me. I've only done used a teleprompter twice. That's during the NHL awards show. And I was so nervous because it's quite far away. You have to read it, and somebody behind the scenes is doing the timing, so they know your cadence, and they're scrolling down. And I was like, this just looks like this is going to be messed up. So when I see the local news people, and they're always on a teleprompter. I'm like, that does not look easy. That looks really hard to me.
Yeah. I have a random question that I thought of earlier. When someone gets drafted at the same number as you, is there like a club?
Oh my gosh. There's no club, but it does resonate.
You always see you're 38?
Yeah, 38.
You see 38 and then you... Yeah.
So that's interesting about the draft. So at least to me it is. So as I mentioned, I was drafted in 1980. Back then, I didn't think I was on anybody's radar for the draft. So I didn't have an agent when the draft rolled around. There was this hockey book, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was a quarterly magazine, and I would buy it. And one time in my draft year, my name was listed in there as a potential draft choice. I'm like, what? Really? Somebody thinks that I'm that good that I might get drafted? So, and in there, they said most likely a third or fourth rounder, which for a goalie is really high. And so that draft day comes, and my brother and I are playing ball hockey in our parents' basement in Edmonton. Phone rings, and my brother Ken goes up and answers it and says, "Phone's for you." It's a guy by the name of Jimmy Devellano from the Islanders. So Jimmy explains to me that they draft me in the second round, and they'll mail me more information in the upcoming weeks. But what Jimmy told me later was that they viewed Don Beaupre and I equally. Don was another goalie. He was from the Ontario Hockey League. And the Minnesota North Stars drafted Don number 37 overall. Islanders had the next pick. And Jimmy told me later that they thought of me as a third rounder. They're hoping actually to get me in the fourth round. But as soon as Don Beaupre went in the second round, they thought they better not wait. And so they drafted me 38, which is in those days a significantly higher signing bonus. So it made me a few more bucks in my jeans. And yeah, it was. So now whenever I see a guy drafted number 38, I think, I wonder what his day was like. And that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Back to broadcasting.
Yeah.
What is some advice that you wish someone gave you when you started? Or advice that you give to new people?
New people, just do the work. And I was given that advice. Like when I was first starting, John Shannon, Ron McLean, I remember I was meeting with both those guys in the CBC one night before our show, going over what we were going to talk about we didn't have long pregame shows. I think we only had like a 5 or 7 minute segment before the puck drop. But they were asking me about this team, and I went into cliche mode. So what do they have to do to get back into the series? And I said the stupid line, well, their best players have to be their best players. And both Ron and John at the same time basically said, that's not good enough. Mm-hmm. We're way past that. You've got to dive deep into who needs to play better and why and what they need to do better. So I was always given great advice, like cliches, all these different things. I won't get into the different ones that still drive me crazy when I see broadcasters with making silly mistakes. So I was given all those great sort of tips. I remember one time I was doing a game in Edmonton. Don Whitman might have been doing play-by-play, and I'm doing color. This is really early on in my broadcasting career. And a player on one of the teams fell into the boards and was injured. And I'm guessing now. I'm saying, oh boy, that looks like it could be his knee, maybe twisted his ankle, I'm not sure. And John Shannon from Toronto gets in my ear and goes, "Are you a doctor? Quit guessing." And so I've never guessed again. And so now when I move forward and young broadcasters or people that are maybe going to broadcast school, I'll go meet for a coffee and they ask me some things. I say, just put in the work because you can't fake it. And so that's what I do. I watch tons of hockey during the week. I take notes. I make sure that I know the teams as well as I possibly can. And it's not physically demanding work, but they're long days. Broadcasting, typically you don't leave the building till late. I know when I do a Flames game, I usually don't get home until 11:30. When I do Hockey Night in Canada, we don't get off the air until 1 a.m. That's the earliest on a Saturday. During the playoffs, it could be later because of overtime. So you have to be prepared to talk a long time and continue to have somewhat thoughtful points without repeating yourself over and over and over. So every year you've got to come up with new ways sort of to get your message across.
I'm going to take a quick break.
Okay, I like it.
We'll be back. Hey everyone, if you're new to the show, please subscribe on YouTube. Lots of listeners on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. Keep subscribing there. Share it with someone. If you think it's a cool concept, share it with your friends. We want to keep it going. So yeah, thanks so much. Stay tuned for more Deets. And we're back. How do you like that? What do you do when you come back from break?
That's funny. I don't even know. I'm just trying to think how Ron McLean gets us back from break. And I think we just get into it.
Just start talking. Maybe I'll start doing that from now on.
That's how we do it.
I want to talk a little bit about Calgary.
Yes.
Why you decided to live here and what you kind of love about it.
Oh boy, where do you start? Well, first I'll get to answer the first one. Why Calgary? Well, we're Western Canadians, both my wife and I. She grew up in Saskatchewan. I grew up in Edmonton. We met in Medicine Hat when I was playing junior hockey. We met in high school. And when we moved south to the U.S. to play hockey for all those years, I was down there actually for 17 years. I played 2 years in the minors and 15 in the NHL. When we were living in Los Angeles, we always knew that when we were going to retire, we're moving back to Canada. We always knew Western Canada. And since Donna's family is in Medicine Hat, mine is in Edmonton, we wanted to pick in the middle. We didn't want to pick in Edmonton because it'd be harder to go to Donna's family and vice versa. So we chose Calgary. And the reason why we chose the area that we're living in, because I knew Mike Vernon for a number of years. And so he was still playing for Calgary. Like I said, we're in LA, and I had a good long chat with him where we should live, and he told me this area. So we went and checked it out in the summer and loved it, bought a lot in the summer of 92, built our house, took a year to come up with plans, a year to build. So since the summer of 94, we've had our house. We love it. Well, we're not going to move anytime soon. Close proximity to the mountains, which I love. That my mom and dad, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I have an older brother, but the one gift, many gifts my mom and dad gave me, but one that really lasted or left a great impression was our going to the mountains. So when I was a kid, I loved going to Jasper and Banff and Lake Louise so much. And what I wanted to do in life, because of that gift, I want to be a park warden. I want to be a park warden in anywhere like Jasper, Yoho, Banff, Glacier, Waterton, something like that in a mountain park. And unfortunately, the stupid game of hockey got in the way and took me away from my dream. But, and so we love it. Everything about the city is so great. Like when people ask me about Calgary, I say, well, you've got to go out there. You've got to experience the mountains. You got to go hiking. You got to go see the wildlife. But also what we've really noticed, the difference in the city, like the dining scene is amazing. Like we've got so many great restaurants here, so many things to do, things for our kids, things for our grandkids to do. This is just a really incredible city.
What is your favorite thing you've been a part of outside of hockey in Calgary?
In Calgary? Most likely the outdoors. I love going. I'm not in shape anymore, and but I still like going for a walk, and I love going for a walk in our river valley. So whether it's from Edworthy Park towards downtown, or oftentimes my wife and I will drive downtown park and go for a great walk along the river, end up in Inglewood, come back, maybe stop in Kensington and have a cold beer on a patio somewhere. So there's those are things that I really connect with because they're outdoorsy.
Is there something people outside of Calgary don't understand about it that you find yourself explaining a lot, like maybe to do with cowboys or snow? Something like that.
Like, I'm not going to say where, but there's a certain part of this country that I travel to often, and they always think that it must be so cold there in winter. And I'm like, no, it's pretty much like here. It's pretty much like where you live. That, and I think that most people don't recognize how cosmopolitan Calgary is. Like it's right up there with Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. There's really not much difference between like downtown Calgary. In fact, it's a very vibrant downtown with all the oil and gas, and downtown is really humming.
Are you an Oilers fan?
I'm going to be honest, and I'm not saying it just because I'm on the show with you, Jeff. I'm not really a fan of any team in particular, although I work alongside the Flames. It really makes my job so much easier when the Flames play great, and I'm happy for them because they're really good people and the organization's great. But I have friends in every organization, like literally. I
was going to ask because since you cover all the teams, is it hard to even be a fan of any of them? Are you kind of a fan of all of them?
That's how I see it. I'm a fan of all of them, really. And I want every organization to do well. Like seriously, when I'm doing my rosters for a particular game and I have everybody, I have the owners on my roster, I have everybody in the organization on my roster. And I'm sometimes blown away by how many people I know in every organization. It's really cool. And whether they're general managers or assistant general managers or coaches or players now, sons of players that I played with. So yeah, that's how I'd categorize it. I am a fan of every team. But I will say this, I want to get back to the Flames for a minute. That organization, they're so classy, not just saying it because I work alongside them. This group of players that they have right now, the season they just had, one of the best seasons I've had as a broadcaster, because the group's really good. And there have been really good teams before with really good people. For some reason, the team in 24-25, that was a really fun team to cover.
Yeah, it's bringing me back in. I was a little bit upset after Kachuk left.
Okay.
I didn't watch for a couple of years, and this team it's fun. It's bringing me back in. Really
good people. I don't go on the charters very often anymore. Well, maybe I will this year. I don't know how my schedule is going to look, but some years I'll go on maybe as many as 15 or 20 flights with them. And this year, or past year, I think I was only on 4 or 5. But just to be around them and how nice they are and our little chats that we have on the plane, really rewarding.
I want to take a little bit of a turn, talk about mental health.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about mental health.
I do.
When did you become more public about it? Mm-hmm. And also, when did you realize that you needed to address it?
Okay. So mental health has been something our family has had to deal with for a lot of years. So our youngest daughter, Caitlin, when she was 12, she was diagnosed with OCD and anxiety. We didn't know much about what that meant and how that would affect her life. But when we were going through that whole stage, I was in 2005 when she was diagnosed, but looking back, we knew for at least a year that she was going through things. I have to admit, I don't have guilt that I didn't recognize it earlier, because we have 3 daughters, and all parents will say this, all your kids are different. They have their own personalities. And so when Caitlin was going through her things when she was 11, I just thought that there were quirky little habits. Like she'd blink like this all the time. And I didn't know what that was until finally she shared with us after she was getting help that she thought she was going blind. And so if she made sure that she could see, it would sort of stop those thoughts, stop that loop. Anyways, when she was going through all this, and it was very hard for her. It was very hard for all of us to understand. And we had to include her sisters in the conversation about mental health and what she's going through, because we spent a lot of time with her. And so she went through years and years of therapy. In particular, the first 4 years were very difficult for her. And she came to us when she was 16 years old, and she said, "Mom, Dad, I'm having more good days than bad." Well, that's a pretty profound statement, right? And so we knew that we're on the right track, that continue to get this help. But there are highs and lows, right? And so she started doing really well. High school, I think, for her was pretty darn good. And then she tried to go to university in 2012 in Kelowna at UBCO. And she wasn't able to do that. So she came home after about a month, and she was very embarrassed by that, which I don't think you need to be, but I understand the feeling for sure. And so she started to get the help that she needed again. And so I was sharing this story with our publicist in Toronto with CBC, James Lamont. And James was thinking, I could see the wheels turning. He said, would you guys ever want to share your story? And I thought, yeah, I think it'd be good. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's so much mental health issues that people and families have. And but I went to Caitlin and I asked her, and she said, yeah, she'd share. But I first thought, Jeff, it might be too soon, right? This is only a few months after things were off the rails for her in Kelowna. And she assured me that she was in a good place and she would like to share her story. So James set it up with Joe O'Connor at the National Post and Lauren LaRose with Canadian Press. And they both did 2 separate articles, both beautifully done, told her story beautifully. And it was amazing. She was on the front page of the National Post, and Lauren did a great job, like I said. And so we shared it. But it was interesting. The day before those stories were going to go public, I was in St. Louis for a playoff game, and I got nervous. So I called her and I said, do you really want to do that? Because social media was just starting to take off. And I thought, oh boy, what about the haters? There's going to be so much people making fun of you or just, finding reasons to send you hate. And she assured me that she's okay. And much to my surprise, she had no hate. It was just love. And so that was a really great thing. And so she was asked to speak at many events through the years. And then in 2017, I was going to write my book. And Kirsty McClellan-Day is the co-author. And we're just finishing up the book. Like, we had done everything about hockey and all that. And I thought, we were at her house that afternoon and we pretty much finished everything. And I thought, you know what? If I'm really going to come clean in this book, I better share something. Because I was going through something in 92, 93. I didn't know what it was. Of course, back then, especially in sports and men, you never talked about anything that you're dealing with. And so what happened in the summer of 92, Donna was pregnant with Caitlin. So we'd already had 2 daughters. I think I was entering my 10th year in the National Hockey League. And for people out there that don't know, the average career is about 3 years. So I'm well beyond that. And I'm wondering, because Donna's pregnant, how much longer I can do this. How much longer can I stay at this level? And those thoughts are reasonable. Those are not unreasonable thoughts, right? But when they went from that to unreasonable, then things took a dark turn for me. So it went from how much longer can I do this to you no longer can keep doing this. You're, that whole fraud thing. And then I got off to a great start that year. I have no idea how, because I had all these the loop going round, until finally I had a meltdown or an episode in Milwaukee. We had a neutral site there, a game in early December, and then I was awful. I was off the rails. So I shared that whole story with Kirsty. It's in the book. And then in January of that year, I was still playing terribly, and Barry Melrose, thank God, our coach, recognized this wasn't something physical. I needed help mentally. So he introduced me to Tony Robbins. And so I worked one-on-one with Tony for a while, and he got me out of that place. And I always tell Barry, I'm forever grateful for him for doing this. I ended up playing 5 more years in the league. That year we went to the final, and it's directly related to Barry and Tony. And then I was pretty much free and clear of it. We all have moments where we're anxious and we deal with things, but it wasn't overwhelming until the summer of 2019. And I knew these thoughts were coming back a little bit, and we were out at Predator Ridge. I call it my happy place. It's a golf course just outside Vernon. And that summer, Nick Kipros was let go. And I didn't know it at the time, but that actually started all these thoughts again, because I'm thinking, well, why Nick? I'm the oldest one other than Ron, but I'm a an analyst, and I started to get those same thoughts. How much longer can you do it? Boy, when you go on the air, you better be perfect or else you're going to be next. And all those ridiculous thoughts, because I will get fired one day. I will be let go. I mean, you got to accept that. And so, but those thoughts became louder and louder. And once again, those thoughts turned into a loop, and I couldn't control them. And that was before the pandemic, but certainly the pandemic didn't help because now we're all secluded from each other. And then I went to Toronto, I want to say in September 21 for the playoffs. And I was terrible. I just couldn't do it. So I went to see the person for my mental health. I went weekly for months and months and months, even to the point where I was actually doing really well. But I just like to be there. I just like to be in the office. And so he taught me about journaling. I do that, just a whole bunch of different things to help me get through each day. And when I do it on social media, because we do share quite a bit, I don't want to be that guy though. Oh, look at poor Kelly. He's sharing again. He's having a tough day. I only do it sporadically. And then there's this great community that we have where all these people reach out, and it's really cool. I respond to every single person that sends me a message. And well, I can't say that. Sometimes it's overwhelming. I think one message I had out there had like 750,000 views or something like that. So, but if possible, I'll send everybody a message, say, hey, we're all in this together and don't feel that you're alone and all that kind of stuff. And it's a really good community we have.
So what kind of advice do you give to people who ask, what kind of things, you mentioned journaling and seeing someone, what kind of things do you do to make sure, especially in busy times, that you're taking care of yourself?
Sure. Okay. So recognizing when you're starting to get these thoughts and to rationalize those, because that's an important one. What I would suggest to people, I'm not a doctor, so I can't give advice other than just don't do it alone because it's too difficult. But here's what I've done, Jeff. So I'm going to show you this card. So this is what I carry every day with me. It's a little card. Actually, this lesson I was taught by Tony Robbins. So I used to carry a card like that for the last 5 years of my National Hockey League career. Look at the card before every game, and during every intermission, I'd take a little glance at it. It had different points. That doesn't matter. You can do your own card. I've had people share their cards with me since I first went public with this. So here are my points. So breathe, very important. And now you're going to see the next few. It's all about, for me, confidence and believing in myself. So, which sounds silly, doesn't it?
It could, but it works.
Right. So be bold and confident. Trust yourself. You know what you're talking about. There's one here that won't make any sense, so I won't share it. It's just a really deep one for me. And then the person that I see for my mental health, he told me this one line that I'd never thought of in my life. I'm just charging ahead every day, right? Never thought to pat myself on the back. He said, I deserve this success. So to that point, I have this card. You may see it every once in a while on Saturday night in the pregame show, sometimes later. It's right in front of me, almost every broadcast, just to give me that comfort.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? And I don't mind sharing it. And if somebody needs something like that to maybe carry a card with them, I had a total stranger a few years ago come up to me and show me his card. It was very cool. Brought us really close. It was cool.
It's also great to share because we've come a long way with like the stigma around, even especially with men and in locker rooms and stuff. Yep. But watching this could be helpful.
Right. And just to know that you're not alone. There's so many people. Like we deal, Caitlin, our family, and myself, we deal with the Canadian Mental Health Association, and we've partnered in many things, and they're amazing. They are truly amazing. Love that organization. But there was one area that I disagreed with them. They used to say that 1 in 5 Canadians are affected. And I say that number is way greater. They've now changed that. They've adjusted it to 2 in 5. I think 2 in 5, so their life is unmanageable or debilitating. And I say it's greater than that. I say the number is like 4 in 5, or somehow maybe all of us are affected in our own little way, whether it's us personally or a friend.
Mm-hmm. My follow-up was actually going to be, what advice do you give to people for helping their loved ones instead of themselves, or how to communicate with
Sure.
their loved ones.
Well, we've seen that because of Caitlin, so we know that something needed to be done. I think just really pay attention and ask them, are they doing okay? Like not just in a passing way, but really ask them if they're doing okay. And we always say, just look in their eyes, because everybody knows a person's eyes don't lie, right? You can see everything when you look at a person, if they're doing okay, if they're not.
So when did you start to speak publicly about this?
Well, I did personally when I wrote my book in 2017, but more specifically in around 2021. And I've really noticed a shift. So when Caitlin was so brave in 2013 to share her story, people started to talk about it a little bit more, but I don't think it's only been about, I think, 5 or 7 years that it's been more mainstream, and more people, men and women, can talk about how they're feeling, what they're going through, without any shame, without very much judgment.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it's a more normal conversation. As an example, Jeff, so during the early part of the pandemic, I think a lot of us people started to connect through social media in ways that we hadn't before. And so I've done so many podcasts, been on a lot of shows, talking about mental health, in particular, a lot with men. Like 7 years ago, that most likely wasn't happening. And men wouldn't be sharing about how they're feeling or what they're going through. That's the great thing about this, is that we're gaining more momentum. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so we've seen this change. What's it going to be like for people in 5 or 10 years? It's going to be so much better. There'll be more help, because people aren't getting the help they need as quickly as they need. And so if we continue to have this conversation and be loud about it, get more people talking about it, it's only going to get better for people that are going through things, because they'll have more resources.
Yeah. Once you open the conversation, the dominoes should fall, right?
Because this conversation isn't going away.
Yeah.
We're now really into this, and it's a good thing.
I think a lot of the time people before maybe were struggling with their own mental health, and then they would make fun of people who were open about it.
For sure. Because you weren't strong enough,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like Michael Landsberg says, what a great saying, sick, not weak. Mm-hmm. Like Ron McLean, he shared this text. In fact, we were talking about Bell Let's Talk many years ago, and we're texting Ron and I about the great job Michael does. And the last exchange, and only Ron McLean, beautiful fashion, his last text to me was, inner peace, what a quest. I mean, that's what we're all looking for. We're all searching for more good days, all that kind of stuff.
So when people look back on your career on and off the ice, what do you hope they think about and they remember? Most
importantly, I know it's going to sound too heavy. Most people won't ever remember me as a player or a broadcaster, I don't think. I hope they remember the work we do in the field of mental health.
It's so great that you're doing something good. You have the megaphone. Yeah. And that's what you're doing.
That's right. That's what I've chosen to do. That's what I think is more important than my playing days, my broadcasting days, as much as I love it. And it's a real great opportunity. But those are just jobs, right? Those are, they're cool jobs, but they're just jobs. When we talk about this is important.
Yeah, actually, I have a couple more questions, but now after this conversation, none of them really seem important.
Okay, I like it.
So I think we can...
I love it.
We can end there.
You did a great job, Jeff.
Thank you.
That was a lot of fun.
How would you like to sign off to everyone watching?
Boy, that these conversations are cool. They're amazing. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between Jeff and I. And you, by the way, did a great job. A lot of research.
Thank you.
I've done a lot of these things, and you had a lot more depth to this than most of the people. So congrats.
Thanks. Anytime you want to come back, you're welcome to come back.
Thank you. Love to.
I just take these off and it ends.
Okay.
Okay.